there, you're listening to episode number 4 of the Estranged Heart podcast, and I'm your host, Kreed Revere. Welcome to those of you who are new. We're glad you found your way to us. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for tuning back in. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss when a new episode drops. For now, I invite you to settle in with a cup of coffee or tea and an open heart. A quick disclaimer, again, I am not a therapist or a counselor. Nothing within this podcast should be considered or taken as therapy. If you're in need of therapeutic support, such as counseling, please seek out a therapist near you. I like to begin each episode with a quote. Reconciliation requires changes of heart and spirit. It requires symbolic as well as practical actions. Malcolm Fraser. Again, 2 caveats as we get into this new episode. This is my reconciliation story. It's not yours. There will be parts of it that may sound familiar to you, parts you may not be able to recognize that are not like yours or something that you can relate to. However, it does not mean that there is that it's wrong or any worse than or less worse than yours. It's simply mine. And also, as out of respect for my adult children and them being the owners of their stories, there will be parts of my reconciliation story that intertwines with theirs that I will not disclose. If and when they give me permission to share their stories, I will do so, but until then, they're not mine to share. I wanted to just start off with a brief recap of the last 2 episodes in that my estrangement experience. As the old saying goes, the only way out is through. With estrangement, you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it. You have to go through it. And that means feeling all the feels. It means experiencing all the heartache, and pain and sorrow and grief and anger and all of those things. The grieving process is significant, especially with ambiguous loss. So that loss that there is no final closure of sorts, as there is with a death or a divorce, and there's a finalization of the divorce through the courts and things like that. With ambiguous loss, it's an open-ended loss. So that grieving process was super important. I got to reconciliation after what I thought was a long process. In comparison to others out there, it was not very long. I know of estrangements that are currently ongoing and have been ongoing for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. So by comparison, mine was not that long. However, to me, it seemed like a lifetime. So that short bit of time, a year to 2 years, was not super long, but it was to me. And in that time period, I experienced a lot. I grew, I changed, I got myself into therapy, where I'm still in therapy today because I want to continue to maintain the changes that I've made, and continue to grow and evolve to become a better human being and a better parent to my adult children and a better grandparent to my grandchildren. So the reconciliation with my children started with a lunch with my youngest daughter. And I got to thinking the other day as I was contemplating recording this episode, and I thought, I don't remember now if it was me who asked her to lunch, or if she asked me to lunch, or if it was just a mutually agreed upon thing. I don't recall the specifics of that. I will have to ask her. But it was a lunch. We met at a Thai restaurant, and I remember apologizing to her. I remember being pretty emotional during that lunch. It was just she and I. And I remember apologizing. I remember telling her that I had significant regrets and how I parented she and her sister. And basically just really trying to sit and listen to her in whatever she wanted to share with me, and not make it about me, not make it about my hurts and my pains, and things like that. And it was after that lunch that things began to clear. And it was after that that I was able to begin the process of working towards a reconciliation with my oldest daughter. And while I don't have confirmation regarding this for sure, because I've not had a conversation with my daughters yet about what caused the estrangement, and then their version of the reconciliation, I believe that my youngest daughter had conversations with my oldest daughter and potentially expressed that she had seen some changes that I had made within myself, and that potentially that is what opened the door to my oldest daughter considering reconciliation. So it was a slow process. It was not something that happened overnight. I wanted it to. I wanted to, just jump on the train and run at full speed ahead, and I couldn't. I knew through my therapy that this was a baby step by baby step process that very likely could mean 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. And that it was just going to be excruciatingly slow by my definition. And that I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with it. There was nothing that I could do to make it go any faster or any smoother or anything along those lines. So I also met with my oldest daughter. I met my youngest daughter for lunch, met my oldest daughter for breakfast. I don't know, I guess it was about 6 months or so after I had that lunch with my youngest daughter. And it was a very awkward lunch. It was like, I walked up, I didn't know if I was supposed to hug her. I didn't know if she wanted me to hug her. If I should attempt to hug her, if I should just let things be, and if I let things be, would she think that I didn't love her and I didn't want to hug her? And so there were just all sorts of emotions and things being felt, and should I do this, not do that? If I don't do this, then what will she think? And if I do that, then it's not what she wanted, then what would she think? And I really felt like I had zero control over any part of it. I had no control at any point in time. I knew that she could pick up herself and my grandson and walk out, and I could potentially not ever see them again. So it was not easy. It was very, very, very difficult. And it took everything I had to stay composed, and try to be, cordial, but loving. And I just really didn't know what to do outside of moment to moment to moment to moment. And so I just had to navigate those waters as they occurred. So we moved through that, and then it was just, again, baby steps by baby steps, an invitation to, come to their house, to meet them again. And it was just really, really, really slow steps. And there were still, moments that happened in their lives that I was not included. Even as we were working through reconciliation, it wasn't like they invited me out for this lunch and this breakfast, and then, poof, right after that, everything just went back to normal and I was included in their lives and all of that. It did not happen that way. And so time is what brought us through to the other side. And we have now been reconciled longer than we were estranged. We're 4 years into this reconciliation, and our relationships look very different. And if there's one thing that I could express to you and to those who are wanting to know more about reconciliation, is that things never go back to normal. I know I hear that a lot from estranged mothers, that, I just want things to get back to normal. I just want my kids back in my life again. I just want to get past this estrangement and get back to the way things used to be. And I'm here to tell you, they don't go back to the way they used to be. And if they did, and if they do, that would be a huge red flag for me, because that means things haven't changed. Things haven't changed. And if they haven't changed, then you're just repeating patterns and stories over and over and over and over and over again. So I knew that I wanted my reconciliation with my children to produce healthier relationships with one another, and so that we did not, as much as possible, we could reduce the risk of estrangement again. And again, I know that there are no guarantees in life. There are none. And so I'm not living under a rock thinking that estrangement cannot ever happen to me again. It very much is in my mind. I think once you go through an estrangement experience like that, on some level, it causes the little t traumas, and there will always be that wondering, what if we estrange again? So things don't go back to normal. The relationship that I have with my children now looks very different than what it looked like pre-estrangement. And 4 years later, I can say that I appreciate that, and I love the relationships that we have now. I think that there's still room for us to grow and evolve and change and become better human beings, as well as better, have a better relationship between mother and daughters. But it's different. And thank God it's different, because what we had before was not healthy. And I say that anyone who enters into estrangement, the relationships you had before the estrangement occurred were not healthy, because healthy relationships don't generally end up in estrangement. It's the unhealthy ones that end up there. And I know that some people will say, well, it wasn't my fault because, it was my daughter or son's, new spouse or partner, life partner, that has caused this, or there's the potential for, parental alienation to come into play. But I still, on some level, I believe on some level that healthy relationships between a parent and an adult child will not permit these outside forces to come in and disrupt the relationships that we have. And sometimes what we think is a good relationship really isn't. And it took me being in therapy to realize that as well. Because I thought at one point in time, I thought that I had a good relationship with my children. I thought that, the challenges that we had were nothing more than what every mom and daughter goes through at some point in time. My kids were going through, my youngest one going through college and, getting married. And so all of these life changes, and, that just brings on, a different type of relationship to begin with, and different challenges and things. And so I thought that was all normal. And my oldest daughter, had gotten married, remarried, and, having another child. And, so again, life changes and challenges that come our way. And sure, we're going to have difficulties, but yeah, our relationship was great. And I was so mistaken. And I didn't realize that until the estrangement happened, and I got myself into therapy about estrangement. And that is where I learned how my own childhood affected how I parented my children, and that I was being triggered by this, that, and the other thing, and how all of those personal triggers, that my adult children were pushing all these buttons and I was being triggered. And it wasn't that they were doing it with intention and ill intent and malice, thought. That's not what was happening. They were trying to give me messages that what I was doing and how I was in relationship with them was not working, and it was not healthy, and it was not what they wanted nor needed. And so I had to take a good, hard, long look at that. And I also had to learn that what I thought was a healthy relationship was actually not so much. It was enmeshment and codependency and all of those things that from the outside, most people think are healthy, and they're not. So I had to go through all of that. I had to learn about myself. I had to learn about my own childhood, my own history, and how those things were affecting my current relationships, and how I parented my children, and then the relationships we had with them as adults. And it was through that allowed me to shed my armor and become, open my heart and become much softer, and yet soft, yet with boundaries, right? And personal boundaries, and understanding that they had boundaries, and that we had to respect one another's boundaries, and that their boundaries were not a personal attack on me. And that's, I think, the way that a lot of us as parents who are estranged think, that our children are placing these boundaries that are as a form of punishment for us. And that's generally not the case. That's not what I find when I talk with estranged adult parents and estranged adult children. When I talk with them, that's just not what they're doing. They're trying to do it to have healthier lives for themselves. And so I know that's what my children were trying to do. And I know that today I do my level best to respect their boundaries. And I feel more confident in my own boundaries. I don't say to them that this is a boundary of mine. I don't put my foot down and insist that things be done one way or the other. I simply, if it's a boundary for me, if, let's just say something is happening, there's an event and I don't want to be around another particular person or something along those lines, that's a boundary for me, I just simply decline the invite. Thank you for the invitation, but I'm not able to make it. And I leave things at that. But that's a boundary of mine. And so I keep that in place, just as they keep their boundaries in place. So it was learning how to let go of the armor, let go of the self-protective measures that I had because of the estrangement. And I had to let those go in order to get back into relationship with my kids. I had to say, I know I'm in pain. I know that I'm taking a risk. I know that I have to learn to retrust again and all of these things. And I have to be vulnerable in order to have a relationship with my children again. And that's scary. It's really, really, really scary when you've been hurt by estrangement. It's not easy. It's so unbelievably difficult to do, but it is necessary. And it is what got me, in part, got me back to my children. So shedding my armor, opening my heart, breaking patterns, understanding that walking on eggshells is a part of the reconciliation process. It just is. I don't know of one reconciliation case where both parents and the estranged adult children have not said, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. You will feel that way. It is a part of the process. Lean into it. Don't fight it. It just is. You're learning how to navigate something new and different. And so it can feel like you're walking on eggshells. So again, it's just a part of the process. Lean into it. And understanding that, life is never normal again. In order to have something different, you have to do something different. That means you have to break out of patterns. It means you have to do the dance differently. And that means someone has to stop doing what's always been done. And it oftentimes requires significant change. For me, it was absolutely massive and huge. It changed my entire life. It changed how I am in relationship with everyone today, not just my children. Estrangement and reconciliation. To get to reconciliation, you have to do something different. And whatever that something different is, has to be on some level showing some sort of vulnerability and softness with our kiddos. So that's how I got to reconciliation. In the next episode, I will talk more about the transformation and what life looks like for us today on the other side of that. In the meantime, know that, getting to that reconciliation piece, I, even in the process of our reconciliation, I was not invited to my daughter's college graduation. I was not invited or knew anything about her engagement for a long period of time to her fiance, now husband. And I thought for a good bit of time that I was not going to be invited to her wedding. So, and I missed all the first with my grandson, outside of his first Christmas. I was not there for, all of his first major holidays outside of that one when he was just a few months old. I was not there for his first birthday, all of those things. And I had to learn to let that go. I had to let go of my sadness around that and my, at one time feeling like, how dare my daughter not allow me to be a part of his life, and then I had to learn that's her child, not mine. He's not my child. He's not my son. But he is hers. And so she, as a parent, has a right to do what she thinks is best for her son, regardless of whether or not I agree with that. And so I had to learn how to let things be. Let them be. I don't necessarily, my therapist and I talked about this at one point in time. I don't necessarily know that letting go is so much a thing that we do more than we just let it be. And that's what I had to learn how to do with stepping into reconciliation with my adult children. I had to learn to just let things be and to not give advice and to not, give my thoughts on things and things like that, and just to let it be. So, and that was really difficult for me. Again, coming from, the professions that I had. I was a single mom. I was the one running the show. I was the one giving the orders, the one, dictating what was going to be done, how it was going to be done, where it was going to be done, because I was a single parent and there was no one else there to help me out. So in order to get things done, I had to manage those. And so I had to learn how to do that differently with my adult children. I had to learn how to be in a relationship with them differently. And it was hard. It was just very, very hard. And it required significant amount of vulnerability to be able to open my heart to doing something different. So I believe that's going to bring this episode number 4 to a close. Again, in episode number 5, we'll talk about the transformation and what our relationship looks like today with between myself and my daughters. And so that will be on episode number 5. I hope that this time together today is something that you feel was well spent. And I urge you to please tune in each Sunday for a new episode. If you are an estranged adult parent or an estranged adult child and would like to have your story shared on this podcast, please reach out to me via email at theestrangedheart@gmail.com. Again, theestrangedheart@gmail.com. You can also leave a voice message for me on the podcast at anchor.fm. And I'm also on Instagram. You can direct message me there as well. And I just also want to say that if you're not one that wants to come on the show yourself and share your story, but you want your story to be heard, I'm open to having a phone conversation or meeting with you on Zoom and listening to your story, and then I can share that on the podcast on your behalf, and keeping you anonymous if that's what you wish. But I feel that stories are very, very important, and that is how we learn and grow and change as human beings. And so I think that everyone's story is valid and needs a voice. And so I'm happy to provide a platform for that voice. If you elect to feel the need to share your story, I'm willing to help you to do that. Again, I can be reached via email at theestrangedheart@gmail.com. In the meantime, I want to just thank you again for joining me today, and know that I am holding your heart in mine. Until next time.